you've got to, when you Brahmins change, the world changes.
Yes.
So I think, like you're saying, your observation about Baba not coming and speaking more live Murlis at the moment. Then we've had the pandemic. And I just think that more Brahmins have become more focused on their yoga. There's a greater exposure as well to classes around the world and Brahmins around the world. And we're realizing that actually there's a lot of good stuff going on, and lots of self-progress going on. So I think that that's all been part of pushing us forward as well.
Yeah, I think the Brahmins are now becoming more elevated. They're understanding what the situation is, and we're understanding what we need to do. Like our center for Navratri, we were up 2 o'clock in the morning doing yoga from 2 to 5 in the morning, doing meditation. So and a lot of centers are doing that. So, the vibrations are much, it's spreading more widely now with the Brahmins, which is,
Yeah.
nice to see. It's beautiful to see that looking, thinking, let's get to the whole, scene of healing, helping the world.
I've shared it before, but Sister Sudesh used to share this story. It comes up in the Morally of Baba. Baba said he's got a machine to check the children's stage. And she remembers she was in that gathering in Madhuban, and they were all thinking, what sort of machine would Baba have? Then they were thinking, well, maybe it's like some subtle region machine. And Baba said, no, I got it in my room. So, yeah, what's... So then after the Morally, Baba said, children, come, Baba will show you in his room. So like Baba's room was just a small white, like there wasn't much in Baba's room to hide a machine. Like they couldn't think where would be this machine. And then Baba opened up his cupboard and there was a radio in it. And Baba said, this is how Baba checks the children's stage, that if the wars are increasing in the world and Russia and America are fighting, Baba thinks the children's yoga is getting better.
Oh.
But if distraction is we're looking further away, then Baba thinks that the children are not focusing on yoga. And so I think you're right, that observation is probably correct. That's how Baba would do it. Baba always had a great sense of humor. But I think there's a serious point in that as well, that Baba always says the flames of distraction emerge from this sacrificial fire. So there's always that connection. Last week we were talking about this role of Shankar and the significant moment really in the drama of the soul of Brahma transitioning from the physical into the subtle. And if you read the Muralis from 69 to 76, so there's a period 1969 to 1976, those Muralis are on the preparation for distraction. And what had occurred was some Brahmins, they had sort of like what you're saying at the moment, they were looking at the conditions. I was in my previous body in the 1960s, but definitely the war between Russia and America felt closer in the 1960s. And they was looking at that situation. I think the Vietnam War had begun as well at that point. So they're looking at all of those circumstances. There was famine. India was on the brink of famine at that point also. And they were calculating this 100 years of confluencing from what they think. I'm not sure whether they had birth certificates, so I'm always a bit unsure how firm these dates are, but apparently Brahma Baba was born around 1876. So they calculated it, that the 100 years of Brahma would be 1976. So distraction would happen in 1976. And Baba just thought, great. He always says, he always says, children, give me the date. Give Baba the date. when is destruction going to happen? So they said 1976. So Baba spent, and particularly if you read the Morley 72, 76, Baba spent 4 years talking about preparations for destruction, becoming ever ready. And you, you see, it's this thing that there is no date. It's the children have to be ready. You know, the task has to be done. The kingdom has to be established. It's the change that will trigger a bigger change. And so it's really that significant change of Brahma transitioning. Everything really did shift from then. And then we've had those few weeks where we were reading the Bhog messages for Daddy Prakashmani. And what was very clear in those messages is that that was a significant moment. I had forgotten how often Baba said she's going to visit the scientist. She's going to visit those that have got a role for preparing the new world, those that have got a role for in this transition, in this transformation. And he was saying that she's got the button for transformation in her hands. And so you've got this switch from corporeal Brahma to angelic Brahma, and then Daddy Prakashmani, a Didi of a center, to becoming the daddy of the Yajna. And it's a very significant, he always says this is the moment the father handed over to the children. The moment there was the willpower, he willed the willpower. And I think that was very, very significant. And then that soul reaches her karmatit stage. And Baba said, just wait, things are going to really begin moving.
Yes.
And then as you're pointing out, now we're in the post Daddy Gulzar. We've had Daddy Gulzar, Daddy Janki. So Baba mentioned yesterday about the 8 jewels. And I think that you're picking up on this point where I think there is a lot of significance when the 8 jewels move on. When Mama, Baba, the 8 jewels, that like Baba's saying that Daddy Prakash has got the button in her hand, that these souls have this way of shaping things. And there are 8 planets in our solar system. So Baba speaks of these moralities surrounding astrology, because Hinduism is very astrological. And he talks about these 8. So you've got the 8 and the sun, the 8 planets and the sun. For a while, they used to teach Pluto as a planet. So they used to say, when I was at school, they say 9 planets in the solar system. But now that's been corrected back to 8, that Pluto is not considered a planet. But Baba talks of these 8 planets and the sun. So these 8 and Shiv Baba, they are remembered as being able to shift the omens of this world. And so now it looks like, I don't know who all the members of the 8 are. I think I have an idea of 5 or 6 of them. But I presume that most of the 8 jewels have become karmathi. So I think that that's significant.
When you look at the world and you look at the number of completely Tamil souls that are causing destruction, you say to yourself, is this part of the plan for destruction? They're completely Tamil Pradhan. There was this family in California where they had to lay off an employee, and that employee came back and killed all 4 of the husband and wife and 2 children, a little baby involved, just kill them. And so you wonder what is on in their brain at this point in time. And I realize a lot of the teenagers now, they have no sense of morality, no sense of value. It's becoming where these children are growing up with just violence and just hate.
Yes, I think that is you are making the right observation, and there was the story yesterday about the gunman in Thailand as well, who killed his family and killed the daycare children. I think 24 children. So one of the things I'm going to put up later is the morally we've read a few times in this chit chat of the 10th of December 1984. You'll remember after the Union Carbide chemical explosion in Bhopal in India, that Baba spoke that morally on the machinery of karma. And because this morning's morally was on that theme, I thought I would post it up again for brothers and sisters who want to revisit it. And Baba in that morally is talking about how the machinery of karma is speeding up because they're just Baba's logic was that if you had karmic accounts piling up in the Copper Age, you still have many births ahead of you to settle. So you could do it incrementally, but you reach the end of the Iron Age, there's a huge burden of sin, and there just aren't these births left. So what souls are experiencing at this time is an intensity of settling. And so what Baba was conveying to us today was that punishment does not have to be lengthy to be deep. And he was talking specifically about the land of Dharamraj, but what you have is this, he's saying in a second, you can clear like half a cycle of accounts that are left. It can be done in a second because the intensity of the experience is such that the soul really feels that pain of that. And Betty Gulzar used to talk about this in her classes because she had seen and witnessed this scene of Dharamraj when she had offered bhog once. So Baba had shown her. And she was narrating how broken a soul feels through that punishment. Like she was saying, it is so deeply profound, that punishment, that it's like nothing that could be replicated in this world. And so Baba conveying to us today, he does not want us to have to go through that. So we got this time for yoga. We got to get on with this and not accumulate further sins as well. And so what you got is understanding that things can be settled quickly. There was one brother in the London class many years back who was like just chit-chatting, and I thought it was an interesting observation he was making, that when you see people who die of older age, you often find that it's the last few years that suddenly they begin to fall ill, but also they begin to have realization. So you might have a very proud, stubborn person who just won't listen to anything for their whole life. And then you find that in that last 1 or 2 years, it's like their conscience emerges in a very powerful way. So they begin to have these regrets. They begin to look back because the soul is realizing that time is coming close now, time for this to end. And something about that fear triggers the conscience, something about an ending that triggers the conscience. And certainly when you look at the health service data, most people use the health service here in England in their last 2 years. Like generally, like expenditure on people, on the average citizen, is much less than tax contribution for like the whole of your life. Of course, there are people who have disabilities and unwell, but generally as an average of a population. And so that type of person ends up only in their last year or two, some even just in the last 6 months. And I think that this is how, this does work, that even within one life, the soul is accumulating all sorts of burdens and old scars. And in that last 1 or 2 years, they can settle a great deal of that. So drama speeds everything up. And it's very sad when we witness it or we hear about it, but you find that an older person, they suddenly fell really ill, then they went into hospital, and then they caught something else, and then they fell and they fractured their hip. I mean, this story is repeated over and over with old age. And you can just see how the soul is settling very, very fast. Now, what Baba keeps his eye on is afterwards. So after the punishment of Dharamraj is complete purification, the liberation of the soul. Similarly, again, I liked one point that one brother had shared once in Motherban. It was a double foreigner brother from Australia, and he was saying that, isn't it amazing how you see this old person, they're struggling with their body, and a few months later, the soul just has left the body, and a few months later, they're this beautiful bouncing baby. And how death is a purification. And I really liked that. Thinking about death as a purification, not as an ending. You know what I mean? It's like where Baba's got that vision. So he's very, very firm that he will not just favor us and favor people, that you're not going to be punished. Today we heard the narrative. He is the supreme account. Absolutely. He's got a role, and he's come to tell us some hard truth, hard talking here. He's not going to just shy away and be polite and be nice. He's going to tell us how it is, because that's what an accountant must do when a business is sinking. So Baba's saying, forget about sinking. You've sunk. You're like these ships that have gone under. You have not been profitable probably probably for centuries. If you think about it, like having births where we perform more charity than sin, so our balance is greater on the side of charity. I'm not sure how long ago that might be. So keeping that in mind, keeping in mind the shortness of time, we've got to understand the machinery of karmic accounts that's occurring at this time. I'm going to push back a little bit on your comment about young people, because I feel that young people get a bad press. So partly, I would say my experience with most young people is that actually we can have more hope in them than in many previous generations, because there's a lot of good conscience, good morals, and good things like that. So I think I've got a very positive experience and vision of young people. The data here in England is that our current generation, born after the year 2000, they are drinking less, smoking less, eating less meat than any other generation. Young people here in England, 50% less likely to drink alcohol, 90% less likely to smoke a cigarette than their parents, and something like 20% more likely to be vegetarian or vegan. So I'm looking, and I would say actually the morality in many ways is greater. Their awareness of climate change is far superior to previous generations, and they really care about it. And then the other bit I want to push back about that is, who's performing most of the sins? I don't think it is the young people. You look at people like Putin, you look at people, right, all these leaders around the world, you look at the levels of corruption, young people are not in charge. It's really, we're living in such a corrupt world. There is not, like Baba says to us, that Ravan's kingdom, like not a single, whether it's finance, whether it's politics, whether it's like, for example, even with science, like scientists will love to present themselves as some sort of objective truth, but they're sponsored, right? So they're financed somehow to do the research. You can't be totally neutral. You just can't. And I've spoken with researchers, if you're financed in a particular way, can you really share your full results with the people who are sponsoring you? So we live in a world where the people in power are wanting to just operate with self-interest, not with morality. So I feel that young people are just the product of their environment, and that environment is created by the elders, not by the young people. I don't know if you want to push back at me on that.
No, no,
On my
no. What you're saying, what your view makes so much sense. It's just that it's heart-wrenching when I see some children, like you walk on the
yeah,
street, these young children just out of it, their minds are like way
right.
off.
Well, we've got a big problem with drugs, haven't we? I mean, one of the hardest job I've ever done was when I was a local government officer, and I walked into a project, and in my first week, one young person was nearly stabbed to death. And I couldn't understand why all these officers, all these managers, they've been there. Why have you let this environment go? This was in like local government accommodation. You're not safe. So I quickly discerned that there were 5 drug lines running through the local authority accommodation. And I said to Baba, come on, right, you're with me. Because how am I safe? By allowing I myself have to go to work in these places. I'm not safe as long as this is occurring. And so we managed to push them out in 6 months, and I was just very, very strict. So I've had this role. I was saying to brothers and sisters on Thursday in one class that one of the efforts I've been making this year is to reduce my personality of confrontation, increase my tolerance and accommodation. But I've played a role in my job of the school principal, you see. So, you've got to be absolutely tight. I mean, there's no margin because the police are looking to you to keep these young people in line. Everyone's looking to sort this out, keep this out. So I am just absolutely like steel when it comes to this. I had Baba with, so these things can happen, magic can happen. But and you see, young people, they don't feel safe as long as these things are occurring. So why there's the violence, why there's the knife crime, why there's the gangs is because of fear. And you need the adults in that society to make them feel safe. Then they can put the knives down. Then they can get out of it. So that was my aim. These projects had to become safe, simple as that. And we saw a lot of progress in that, but my experience was there wasn't a desire. So the police became very happy with me because statistics go down, crime rate goes down. I've had that record in several places for such, and getting crime down to even 0% in some areas really quickly because Baba's with me. And then people can blossom, then people can flourish, then people can focus on their education. But my experience is that most adults don't want to confront this. They want to claim their paycheck and go home again. They don't want to do this. So again, people didn't appreciate me even sorting this out, highlighted that they weren't really doing their job properly in the first place. So then I just left there after a while because I couldn't operate. So it was the environment, the structure. It becomes very ego-based. People are worried about their reputation rather than the children. People are worried about their systems and their bureaucracies rather than the children. Neighbors, for example, imagine living next to a house of young people living on their own with drug dealers coming in and out. And you're 70 years old living next to this. I mean, so I was very, very concerned about all of that. But then your organization doesn't want the hassle of neighbors, doesn't want to have to think about it. So my experience is it was the elders, the structure that create this environment where young people cannot win. And if you feel you cannot win, then this drives you into these negative behaviors. What you have with drug dealers is that, so I became the local lead. Because why I became the local, I became the local trainer going against drug lines in this particular area after just 3 months of being there. How did I become the expert? Because no one else wanted to know. So, I mean, I didn't even know myself. I was just like learning. I got myself educated to a level, but that level of education was more than others. And so then I began holding workshops. Are you aware? This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to work together. This is what we've got to look for when people are getting involved in drugs. So what I learned through these trainings with like detectives, with like senior social workers who are specialists in this sort of drug related young people's care, is the people running everything, the top dogs of these drug lines, guess who they are in society?
Adults.
More than that, they were school principals, lawyers, property, real estate agents. So I remember at one training, they were sharing with me that there's a 28-year-old now. He was 23 when he got put in prison for drug dealing. And he's sort of coming out, reforming himself, and he's now going to work with them as like a mentor for young people to come out of that. And his story was that the head of that drug line was a lawyer, and he was in conjunction with a property real estate agent. So in like central London, prime real estate, that's where the drug money was going. So they were purchasing. So like you look at London's skyline, you're basically seeing the proceeds of crime. Right? Same will be New York. I mean, they'll all be the same, all of these. But they basically had bought out the top level of one of the big tower blocks. This is where this 23-year-old was living. You know, he had the entire penthouse in prime real estate London. That was his reward. He was, you know, going around in his flashy cars with his flashy, and they recruit 14, 15-year-olds. And they do it because they're not going to be put in prison. So they use them to actually do the drug dealing on the ground. They recruit a 19-year-old to recruit the 14-year-old. And that 19-year-old, they choose someone with a driving license, and they fill the car with drugs underneath all the seats and underneath all the panels. And they say, you find children to distribute this, the drugs that are in this car, you keep the car. And this is how they do it. So they rid themselves of a piece of evidence as well, like the car is that person's. So they're clever. These people are clever. They do it. And these young people, they can make, like the people that say these 14-year-olds, they'll be making about $200 a week. Now, for a 14-year-old, that's a lot of money. And then the 19-year-old will be making $5,000 a week. So it's worth it. They feel it's really worth it. But the lawyers at the top of this, they're making millions. There's no risk for them. They're not dealing. They're just buying up property. So it's not the young people, it's actually the upholding, the upstanding members of our community that are, Bible says, Raven's got many heads. And Maya is illusory. It makes it look like that these are people you can trust. But actually, they're the people who are behind. They are Raven's heads. This is the kingdom of Raven. And then we're seeing like all of this warmongering, these warlords around the world. It isn't the young people. They recruit children, soldiers, they recruit also. This is one. So we end up in cycles of violence, generation after generation. And the fault for me is always with the adults.
It's true. When you look at it like that, it's quite true. That's why Baba, he keeps saying, just remember me wherever you go, spread that vibration, purify the atmosphere, which is what we have to do.
And he also says to us, we've got to start again. Sometimes I think in Bhakti we were expecting God to come down and sort everything out. And it comes as a bit of a surprise to us that he doesn't. Shiv Baba doesn't try and sort out the Iron Age. He just says, let's start again. Because it's just so complicated, so deep, so far gone. Sometimes a tree is just so decayed, so rotten, and Baba says you just got to cut it down. So he comes and plants the new sapling. Let's start again. And so Baba's giving us this narrative of hope. Let's start again. Let's look to see what's fresh, what's he creating. He's the seed of the new. And the seed of this world is Raven. And when the seed is Raven, the tree is going to be accordingly. In the golden and silver age, the tree has Shiv Baba as the seed. And so it's a very different tree of this golden and silver age. So it's a relief that we're now going into that period.
Yep.
Ambika Ben, I can see you on screen. Did you want to come in with anything? Yeah, you have to unmute yourself, sister.
Yeah. Morning, Shanti. I have always found, after coming into with Baba's knowledge, is to understand drama and its benevolence. And as you all were saying earlier, that our stage is what will bring us closer to the new age, new world. And I always recall that whenever a senior came into the Caribbean, Daddy Janki with Sister Jayanti, as soon as they left, they always had some upheaval of the weather, and we saw that as an indication of their vibration also. And we used to be, at least some of us used to be excited that anything that is bringing us closer to destruction, you're newly in Gan, it used to be more of an excitement than a fear, and you say, we're thinking it will finish just now. And because I see the drama as benevolent, that whatever is happening, as Leonard was saying, the crimes that are happening with these youths, I saw it as finishing. And I do feel that wherever we take birth, it is always, and Baba's indicated that too, our karmic accounts brings us into a particular situation, family. We come into that. Yes, the environment also impacts and shapes us. But I do feel that you are placed in a home or in an environment to improve yourself, to make yourself better, because your choices are there now. And it's either you succumb to it or you make yourself better out of it. So you're finishing it. So that when young people die, I do not feel sorrow, but I have compassion. I look at it like that. I don't think I take sorrow from too many situations in the world. If it happened to probably those very close to me, that will also tell me where I am on my test. But because of that understanding with Baba's knowledge, is that you're saying, I see it as you're finishing something. And as you rightly said, some of these will be swift. You go very easily. Some will linger. And I have seen where people in their old age really, no matter what it is, they are politicians, professionals. In the last few years, they do reflect. They do reflect. And I also see that as an opportunity for them to be able to now finish some. They may not finish all of the negative actions, but to finish all. And basically, I agree that it is us Brahmins who has to bring the new world, to be able to bring golden age close. And it is our lifting our stage actions to be very, very conscious of what we do at this time. And yesterday was the first day I started my pre-retirement, and at the office, there were few. We had terrible weather this week, and few people came out to work because there were floods. Some couldn't come. And of the few of them were there, as I told them, because they did a little thing with fruits, because they always say, because we don't know, we know you don't eat anything. So they bought fruits. They felt they needed to do something. And as I told them, it's how they saw. I'm not perfect by way of that. But in the last few months, and I think maybe year, not years, maybe year, my whole awareness of how I conduct myself was always important. Early in the yagya, I always felt that my actions should not bring defamation to the yagya. If it brings to me, fine, I'll deal with that, but not to the yagya. And some of the comments that they made yesterday, it was heartwarming to see that really, if you carry yourself in a certain way, they recognize it. They may not always come and say it, but they do recognize it. And for me, it is always about the yagya. It's always about Shiv Baba, and that you do not bring defamation. And I think with that consciousness and having that constant awareness, I might slip from time to time, but to pull back up myself as quickly as I can, that you are reaching a stage where it is Baba is getting done what he wants done through us, bringing ourselves, even to be able to help uplift our Brahmins as well. And, recently Baba talked a lot about the gossiping and all that, is to understand how much defamation you bring to yourself, apart from others as well. So, yes, I agree. The world is as it is. The youths really, some of them really are destructive, and they are so much, because you see them, because of all the birds, they come with so much intelligence. And I think because of the consciousness the world has at this point in time, you see so much of them involved in the non-violence of animals. Most of them now are very conscious about their health. I took my health for granted. But now the younger generation is looking at their health, going into veganism, you looking at vegetarianism. So there is a change that is really happening, and it's a positive change, and within all the destructive things that are happening. And even with the destructive things, I see it as good. I see it as cleansing, So yes, I agree with what you said. I've agreed with what Sister Leonard said as well. But it's really to have the feeling of the benevolence of the drama. The drama is benevolent. Whatever is happening is good.
Yeah, that's good advice. And I think also really good advice about just And Baba has been saying this to us, hasn't he? Don't do anything that attracts 100-fold punishment. You know, so
Yeah.
it's a good
Yeah.
slogan that let me make sure I don't do anything which defames Baba and defames the idea. Like that's a good bottom line, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Good. Some great points there. Thank you. Would anyone else like to come in and share something? Hope everyone's content. So Malaben Shanti to you. Today's Malaben has given us a suggestion for a morally to read. So we do welcome that. If anyone has a particular morally you come across, and then you'd like us to take it up on a Saturday, and so we can have more detail and more discussion on it. We're always happy for your suggestions. So you should all feel welcome to do that.
It's a lovely morally, so really looking forward to it. Thank you.
And Malaben, would you like to just share why you wanted to suggest this particular morally? Can't hear you. I don't know if you could hear me. No, maybe the connection's not so good. So if no one else wants to share anything, then...
I've got a question.
Oh,
Brother.
yes.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello, Shanti and Manoj and from Ireland. And was
You're from Ireland, did you say?
yes, brother.
Yes. Which part of Ireland are you?
It's called Spiddle, County Galway.
County Galway, wonderful.
Yeah. So thank you for the wonderful points that you had discussed the whole throughout today's session. But I was wondering, at what point do we stop involving ourselves in things? In things like we know that we have certain rules and we want to proceed with things, yes. But there are other things that we can see readily, which could be addressed, but it would just take extra time, extra effort. And how do we judge to go or not to go? And if I did go, how much energy or time do I put in that?
Yeah, I think that is a tricky one. I think that's a very, very personal and very, very regular decision that we Brahmins have to take. I actually don't think it's a one-off decision. I think we're always having to judge this. How much do I get involved? Because one of the 8 powers is the power to withdraw. And another one of the 8 powers is the power to cooperate. And so you find that you're always having to use opposite powers at different times. Now, I would say when I was younger, I was more likely to get involved with more things in the community, and you know, I always had a great passion for them. I'm becoming less involved with things, but I think our first step must always be judging where my responsibilities are. We've got a narrative in the morally which is very, very clear that Brahmins are not allowed to run away from their responsibilities. And having been a student in Dedi Janki's class for so many years, I can tell everyone that there is no way that Dedi Janki or Dedi Prakashvini would allow any Brahmin to come and live in a center if they've got responsibilities in the family. They just wouldn't do it. The first thing Dedi Prakashvini asked the brothers who want to live in Madhubal is, are you the eldest brother? And if they are, he usually says, no, you've got to stay at home and look after your parents when they get older. And so most of the brothers in Madhubal, their second and third sons are not the eldest son, because, and in some cases, it's a different situation. But the point being, they're going to emphasize responsibility. I came from a single mother family, and my mother we weren't a wealthy, powerful family, there was vulnerability. So from a very young age, Daddy was trying to emphasize to me that it's not going to be right if I am just going and leaving my mother in one place and going off. And I heard her say this she used to meet us groups of Kamars quite a lot. So when I was 16, 17, 18, that sort of age, she'd meet us very regularly, every week actually. And she'd be saying to all of us, look after your parents, make sure that you're a yogi. I remember saying once, a yogi is someone who has a job, who has a place to live, and looks after their family, and then does it. So, I think any notions that being a yogi means the old world is finished for me, I am now a sannyasi, I'm just going to focus on Baba, I just want to, that just isn't part of the narrative. I think that's always our starting point. But then you're quite right. Baba said a really interesting, it was an interesting phrase I thought in today's Morally, that judge your actions according to Srimad. And sometimes, even when we are fulfilling responsibilities, we are acting out of attachments. And we can have our old sanskars of feeling that we've always got to do more. This is one of the sanskars I'm working on at the moment. Because generally Brahmins are nice people and caring people, we are more likely, I think, to have the sanskars of doing too much rather than having the sanskars of not doing it. So I remember once one sister saying to me, this was in a Brahmin service context as well, and different Brahmins wanted to chat and ask questions and share. And when you're in that Brahmin culture, you're thinking, well, that's service, I should definitely give time. And one sister said to me, Sharon, you're being too generous with your time in a very royal way. And I don't think I understood it at that time. And I look back now, and over the years, that was very helpful to me. Because we sometimes convince ourselves that we are serving, we are doing the right thing, but actually we're giving too much time to people. We're doing too much in a certain area. And even when we're doing Baba's service, I think we've got to be quite discerning. I used to run around a lot, run around here, there, do programs here, programs there, run here, give lifts all the time. And now I'm less is more. Now less is more, actually. So we don't do so many programs. And maybe if we do one, we make sure that's a really good quality one. We concentrate energies there. So I feel it's exactly the right question, but I don't think it's a one-off question. I think we're always having to ask ourselves that where should I put my energy? So once I'd asked a question to Daddy Janki about which services and which things should I prioritize. I'd sent it in an email through Sister Janki. I wrote it in English and I thought Sister Janki could mention it to Daddy when she's got a time rather than me booking time with Daddy directly. And the answer I got back was, you've got to judge where does your energy need to go? You've got to judge where does your time need to go? And you've got to judge where is it that your thoughts need to be used. So I think this is really, Daddy in the 90s was talking quite a lot about energy, where does my energy need to go? She would have been in her 80s at that time. So I think I could see her genuinely, like as an 80-year-old, your body is naturally going to have less energy. So I think she was consciously thinking, where can I save energy so that the body is actually getting really good quality? Because wasting energy, even on a spiritual level, could affect the body. It does affect the body. And we saw that she made it to 104. And I wonder whether it was that saving of energy that actually then comes in use later on. So I think that this is all part of our journey. Sister Sudesh always says maturity takes time. And I think that this is all part of maturity. So I now think, okay, is it part of my job? But what am I doing in my job? So if I'm doing something which should be part of my job, let me do it. And I teach students, they're young people in their 20s. And I can see in myself a change where I don't feel I need to help others. In the past, I'd be like feeling I've got to do more and more. But now, I just let go. I know that there are other stretches. They'll also be okay. Let me do my bit. And then it's all good wishes. So I feel that it's looking at ourselves. I think we've also got to look to see where we think that we want to make an impact in the drama, when in fact the impact has to be of our stage. So our old sanskars will tell us that actions create impact, words create impact. And Baba's telling us that the real impact is your silence and your yoga power. So I think one of the challenges for Brahmins now, as service continues to expand, there's more and more opportunities, we're constantly surrounded by Brahmins doing and doing and doing. It can trigger our feeling that I must always be doing as well. And I would say that if Brahmins feel that you want to do less so you can sit more in yoga, if you need to do less so you can sleep so that your Amrit Vela is better, I would say you do that. But that might mean you have to sacrifice some of your regard that you're going to get. So I feel that we've got to, as you pose this question, this very good question that all of us must ask ourselves, we've got to reflect on subtle sanskars. I share in my class that my observation in myself has been that the foundation of all body consciousness is seeing myself in other people's eyes. I think that we crack this sanskar, we crack everything. And you know, you look at these things, doing too much, wanting to help, wanting to save people, wanting to impress. There are many, many sanskars. In the Lokik world, psychologists have a term, narcissistic compassion. Narcissistic compassion. And some psychologists argue that most of the charitable work that people do is really to feed their own ego. So there's the compassion. And Baba says to us as well that you got to become full. You got to become full. And then the actions you're performing, they're very selfless. Baba is totally selfless. He's incorporeal, egoless, and viceless. And I think we got to challenge ourselves that how much, no doubt, we as Brahmins are compassionate. But is there a percentage of that compassion which is really there to feed our own ego? Or is it really, really necessary that I must be the one to do that? And so I think I've only got more questions in response to your question. Is that okay, Manoj?
That was perfect. Thank you, Baba.
Baba, Baba doesn't let us rest. We go, he'll say, children, be more compassionate. We be more compassionate, and he'll say, children, be more silent. You're doing too much service. And so it was in the Morally last week as well. Baba said, oh, children are just speaking knowledge, doing service, but their chart of yoga is no good. There isn't happiness. Look at this Brahma. He has much more yoga, much more happiness, much more intoxication. So Baba never lets us just become good in one direction. He'll say, but are you good in the other direction too? And so for us, it's always asking questions to ourselves. So yeah, sorry, I don't have a
No, thank you.
solid answer.
No,
that
was the best I could get.
Do you want to come in?
Yeah, I was remembering Dadi Prakash Mani with Kumar. Remember, I bought cassettes for you.
I was there.
Kumar,
I was there.
you were there, weren't you? Kumars, and they had all this.
It was October 97.
Yeah.
And Shantivan had just been built, the big hall had just been built. And I was 19 years old, but I have a reasonable mastery of Hindi to English translation. And it was the very first retreat. I don't know if you all know this, that the very first retreat that Dadi Prakash Mani organized in the Diamond Hall was for mothers, and then secondly for Kumars. So Daddy invited 8,000. Now this was like, there'd never been 8,000 people in a retreat. Now it's like normal, 25,000, but 8,000 going for a retreat. So 8,000 Kumars. And Daddy Janki asked if I would go because there was a group of double foreigners. So I had the opportunity. So 8,000 Indian Kumars, and we were like 12 Kumars from other countries. And so it was a great opportunity to hear their questions. So Dadi Prakash Mani held a question and answer session. And this is what.
Yeah, and so some Kumars asked, about these responsibilities and how, money. But Dadi Prakash Mani was very good at accounts, and she advised even 10%, wasn't it, for no matter how much but don't put, and you don't need to put everything, but 10%, something like that. You'll remember better.
Yeah. I would say out of all of the daddies, the most practical advice was Dadi Prakash Mani. That all of the daddies have their own speciality, and of course all advice is useful, but in terms of like really understanding society and really understanding what it's like on the ground for people, Dadi Prakash Mani was just a wizard at this. And you could see why Baba would put her there. And why it was such a memorable retreat was these Kamars had very good questions, like very, very practical. No one was asking nonsense questions. No one was asking just theoretical questions. It was, well, I've got to be with my family when we go to the temple, and everyone in the temple makes a contribution when the arti comes around. What do I do? They're very practical things. We go to the temple, they offer us the prasad, and if I don't take it, I'm insulting everyone. And then actually Baba's name is even more insulting. What do we do? Like these types of questions. And Dani Prakash Mani was saying things that I didn't expect her to say. So she said that if others are giving, yes, another question was like at work, sometimes colleagues are raising for charity and everyone in the office is contributing. What do we do? Like that. And then he said, well, you should be giving. What is there to think about? They're doing good work. You should be doing. And there was also this, it was I can't remember like which place had been flooded or there'd been an earthquake, but whoever was the brothers from that part of India, they said, well, we just had this situation, and they were asking BK. So this was in the days when still in the BK world, there was a question that how much should we be involved in community service? To give you a little bit of background, when Brother Nevere began planning about the global hospital, there was a lot of opposition because there was a feeling within the Brahmin family that that's not what we should be doing. You know, we are a spiritual organization. Why would we get involved in running a hospital? I mean, that's just ridiculous. You're going to put resources and time and energy into that. Now, as you can see, the Yagya is in a different phase where they're doing lots of community work, lots of community work. It's become normalized, but it wasn't in the 1980s. Even like when the first positive thinking courses were suggested, Brahmins would say, why would we teach these things? We are here to teach Babas morally, Raj yoga. Like it was very, very specific. And this, I think it's good to have that debate. You know, good. What is my purpose? What should I be focusing? It's good to ask ourselves these questions. So in that atmosphere, it wasn't so normal for Brahmins to get involved in the community. So this Kamal was asking that there was this earthquake or flood, and they were asking for our help at the center. What should we do? And Daddy Prakash, when he said, the community looks after us when we need it, we have to go and look after the community. Like she was just very clear. There was no dilemma in her mind. Mm. She was just, your community needs you, you go and help. The brothers at one center were asking that we have got Baba's treasures in our center, blankets and food and this. And of course, we keep it for the Brahmins, you know, so should we just like the Brahmins needed, there's some disaster. Is that what we should be using it for? Baba says in the Morally, don't give donation to sinful souls. Otherwise, the sins will be accumulated. Daddy Prakash, when he said, the community needs it, you open up your kitchen, you go and feed them. Here you go, they need blankets, you go and give them those blankets. There's nothing to think about. The community looks after us, we look after the community. And so it was just such a practical class. She said that if you're going to the temple and they offer you something, if you can take the fruits, just take the fruit. If it's sometimes they give it's like a water mixed with milk and put it in your hand. She said, just take it and drink it in Baba's room. Don't create a scene. Don't create a fun. It's very practical. She said that if you are earning money and you go, and if you're earning your own money, you can give to charity. So she said that if someone in your office is raising some money for something, or in the temple, like it's expected that you give a few pounds or something like that. You don't have to give much money anyway. So she said, you just put it, you just give it.
Just be a trustee, tell Baba and be a trustee.
But she said, if you're living in the center and you're fully surrendered, then you can't give it because you yourself are living on donation. And so she said that the rule is if you live on donation, you cannot give donation. It's not yours to give. But if you're earning your own money, then you can give. And of course, you know that most of your money should be accumulated in the imperishable bank of Shababa. So you know that. But it's true. And you know, I've been conflicted sometimes where sometimes what happens is in the office, someone is leaving and they say, oh, we're going to all contribute to a card and a gift and like that. And I think, you know, in the past, I would feel, you know, bad if I don't give anything and things. And then they buy like a bottle of alcohol or something, you know, a box of cigars or something. And we don't want to be. So I think in those situations, we might say, well, now we've got lots of options and you can say, well, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy my own card for that colleague. So that's the way I handle it now. I'm going to do my own thing. Thank you very much. I want it to be personal. So I'm going to do it that way. And then what you could do, for example, is our Baba's hospitals, they have a mechanism where you can actually give a donation in someone else's name. So sometimes people like that you gave a donation for a certain charity in their name. And you can do it that way. Oh, I donated to a rural hospital in India in your name. And then we can handle it that way. So very practical advice. And she said, for parents, she said, first of all, look after your parents. Don't go running to the center doing lots of service and then your parents are struggling at home. She said, you can't do that. You make sure your parents have brought you up, you look after your parents. And then she said, in your spare time, give time to the center. Of course, that's your duty. The center sustains you, you sustain the center. That has to be done. And she said, with money, you first of all fulfill all your responsibility. Then what you do is you think of Mother Back. So you some percentage of your spare money, you want to keep your connection with Mother Back. So whatever it is, however much it is, keep that going. Then you need to support your local center. So give some there. And then there might be something like a special project that the center's doing. It could be a special program and you feel, okay, I'm going to contribute to this. So then you could keep to that. Then after I had returned, I was giving Sister Jayanti a lift in my car to somewhere she was going. And so I was mentioning this to her, and she said to me, Dedi Janki, for the brothers and sisters outside of India, she's added something else, which is your trip to Mother Back. So what Dedi Janki said is that you should first of all begin saving for Mother Back. And so Daddy felt that all the Brahmins should have a retreat to Mother Back once per year. And of course, it's much more costly coming from abroad. So she wants all of the double foreign brothers and sisters to first of all prioritize your ticket to Mother Back. Then after you've paid for that, you begin thinking about the other contribution. Dedi Janki used to also say that if any Brahmins in London couldn't afford their ticket to Mother Back, other Brahmins who could afford could sponsor them. So there were Brahmins in the class who were more comfortable maybe. And you don't want to create the direct karma, and you don't want a Brahmin feeling grateful to you, like obligated to you either. So what the Brahmins would do, they would just give the money to that, like into the general center, and just say to Daddy, this brother, this sister can't afford, so here's their ticket money. And then Daddy, on behalf of Baba, would just say, not telling them that someone's donated, who's donated. And Daddy would just say to this brother and sister, Baba wants you to go. Here we are. We're booking the ticket for you. So this is the way in which Daddy would do it, and Daddy Prakashmani would do it. So you can see they're being very, very practical. Where do we use our money? Where do we use our energy? Where do we use our time? How do we balance everything? And only then will we become karmatis. There's no way if we lose our balance that we're going to become karmatis. It's not going to happen. And in my last few years, like we lived 1 hour north of London. So whenever Daddy was in London, I would go most evenings, and Ranjan Ben would come with me from time to time to be in Daddy's classes. And Daddy would always give us a lot of love. And the most love I got from Daddy in the last few years was for fulfilling my responsibility to my mother. You know, it wasn't that, oh, you did this, oh, you know, this. How come you didn't do more? How come you didn't contribute to this? Where were you? Why are you not? She wasn't. She was seeing that this was the priority and that I did that. She never asked me about what service is, or she was not in, you know, she was, oh, I can see that your mother's happy, you can see that. And I was attending her classes and she was pointing out different members of the London class who were maybe one where the mother, their son had a disability and the mother was, and still that mother was coming to class every day, and, balancing their student life and doing other services. And Eddie really valued that. One mother, she's a grandmother, in fact, and her husband has never really been like a cooperative soul, but never a BK. And this mother used to work part-time, run a center, bring up the child, help the grandparents, have class early in the morning in their house at 5:30, finish the class, and then drive to Global Corporation House and attend Daddy's class every morning. And Daddy would just, you know, be praising that, this balance. How did these souls do this balance? So that, you know, I think that would be the
Wow. I really needed this class on balance because I could see myself going out of balance, thinking of something. But yes, thank you, Baba. And yes.
Well, Manoj Bhai, you know my personal message is Amrit Vela morally, celibacy, and pure food. These four are non-negotiable. And then everything else, you figure it out. You know, you figure out those, you keep those four going. And then everything else, it's going to be a bit of, it's an art rather than a science.
Yes.
Good luck.
Thank you. Good.
Okay, let's hear a bit of the morally.
Because it's fairly long.
How many pages?
2, 3, 4 pages, like, you know. We want to read the better message for the Global Corporation House for a better world.
Can we do that another one?
Is that okay, Mother Ben? It's rather long, Murli.
Yeah, we can read
Why
it.
she chose.
Yeah, no, we'll read as much as we can, and then let's see how we go. It's on the power of realization.
Okay, Om Shanti. Good morning or good afternoon to everyone. This is Avyakt Bapdada. Is it loud enough?
Yeah.
2nd November 1987. So 2nd 11, that is November 1987. Today, Bap Dada, the world transformer, world benefactor, is seeing his children who are loving, cooperative world transformers. Each one is busy in the service of world transformation through self-transformation. The only zeal and enthusiasm in everyone's heart is that this world has to be transformed. They also have the faith that transformation will definitely take place. Or should you say that transformation is guaranteed and that you are simply becoming instrumental in giving cooperation to Bap Dada by becoming easy yogis and are making your present and future elevated. Today, Bap Dada, in seeing the children who are instrumental for world transformation from all four directions, was seeing one special aspect. All are instruments for the one task. So everyone's aim is that of self-transformation and world transformation. Although all are instruments for world transformation and self-transformation, why are they number-wise? There's a question mark from Bapdada. And then Baba says, some children are able to bring about very easy and quick transformation. Some, although they have the thought of transformation 1 minute, that enthusiasm of elevated transformation is weakened by their own sanskars or by the situations that arise due to Maya or to nature or by the karmic accounts that are being settled through the Brahmin family.
Can you read that line again?
Yeah, this I said Brahmin. Today was about that. So Baba was talking about everyone wishes, easy transformation. But Baba says we are number-wise. Some children are able to bring about very easy and quick transformation. Some, although they have the thought of transformation 1 minute, that enthusiasm of elevated transformation is weakened by their own sanskars or by the situations that arise due to Maya or due to nature or by the karmic accounts that are being settled through the Brahmin family. And some children are weak in having the courage for transformation. Is that okay? So,
Well, we've had this. Shiv Baba mainly talks about Mama and Baba, doesn't he?
yeah.
And with Mama and Baba, you've got this extraordinary passion and determination, this ferocity. They were the elite athletes of Raj Yoga. So nothing was going to stop them. And then Baba looks at us and we're like, yeah, I'll try, I'll give it a go. There are many Muralis where Baba would say he really dislikes this word try sometimes. He wants determination. Like he said this morning in the Murali, do it with your bones. And you're really going to want to do this. Then you can claim a high status. So Baba is saying to us that some can do it easily, like my man Baba. And then the rest of us, we get distracted and overwhelmed by all these different test papers that come our way.
Yesterday, Baba said, follow Mama and Baba in claiming the high status. And today, Baba is saying, and some children are weak in having the courage for transformation. Where there is no courage, there is no zeal and enthusiasm. But then there cannot be the experience of the success desired by the heart for world transformation without self-transformation. Because through this spiritual godly service, there is success of service in 3 ways simultaneously. What are the 3 varieties of simultaneous service? Baba has asked the question, and then Baba is saying, firstly, attitude, secondly, vibrations, and thirdly, words. So, attitude, vibrations, and words. attitude, vibrations, and words, all three are powerful when they are used with the consciousness of being an instrument, with humility and with selflessness. Only then can that success desired by the heart be achieved. You do service anyway. You make yourself and others happy for a little while by the success of service. However, the success that takes place is not what Bap Dada calls the success, which is desired by the heart. Bap Dada also becomes happy in the happiness of the children, but the result noted in the heart of the comforter of hearts is according to their capacity only. Baba will definitely say, well done, because Baba constantly has the vision and attitude of blessings for each child seeing that. If not today, then tomorrow, these children will definitely become the embodiment of success. However, together with being the bestower of blessings, Baba is also the teacher, and this is why he makes you check for the future and draws your attention towards it. So today, Bap Dada was seeing the result of the task of expansion of the task of world transformation and the children who are world transformers. So here Baba is saying, as a father, Baba gives blessings, but as a teacher, Baba would like us to, so I read that bit, is also a teacher. Baba is also a teacher, and this is why he makes you check for the future and draws your attention towards it. So today, Bap Dada was seeing the result of the task of the world transformation and the children who are world transformers. So Baba often says, Baba, Baba Krupa nahi karenge, Baba, we should claim it and make our own true efforts. That's what, as a teacher never studies for all the students. He just teaches, and then up to our students to make efforts and think of their future. And that's what Baba is saying. So as a father, Baba has compassion and gives us blessings, but as a teacher, he's pointing out, drawing our attention to make efforts and become. So expansion, Baba says, expansion is taking place. The sound is spreading in all four directions, and the curtain of revelation has also started to open. A desire of taking a closer look is emerging in souls from all four directions, and transformation is taking place because they now want to see the things that they have heard about. All this is being transformed, but even so, according to drama, this is as a result of the influential power of Baba and the few instrumental souls who are visible. If the majority were to gain success through this method, all Brahmins would be revealed very quickly as those who are the embodiment of success. Bap Dada was seeing that the basis of being successful in being loved by the self, loved by the people, and loved by Baba is self-transformation, and that is lacking. And why is there a lack of self-transformation? The root cause of that is a lack of one particular power. So what was the theme? Baba reminded us. That special power. You see, I read that question Baba asked again. And why is there a lack of self-transformation? The root cause of that is a lack of one particular power. That special power is the power of, remember, realization. An easy basis of any transformation is the power of realization. Until there is the power of realization, there can be no experience. And until there is an experience, the foundation of the speciality of Brahmin life is not strong. Bring your Brahmin life in front of you from the beginning. The first transformation was, I am a soul and Baba is mine. On what basis did you have this experience? Transformation does not take place simply by hearing about this or by speaking about it, but it happens when there is the realization that yes, I am a soul and this is my Father. The realization brings the experience and then the transformation takes place.
So Baba's given us a nice, clear chain of this process. We first of all have to listen to the knowledge. Then we have to have a realization of what we are listening to. That then becomes the basis of experiencing. So I think in between all of that would be practice. And then as our experience grows, we then are able to experience transformation. So it's the experience of the alternative that creates the transformation. As we feel ourselves to be a soul, then we are letting go of body consciousness. Just by knowing that I'm a soul, it doesn't do it. It doesn't conquer body consciousness. The more that I feel that I'm a pure soul, it's going to conquer the vices. And so it's the experience of the alternative that's going to create the transformation.
So the realization brings the experience, and then the transformation takes place. Until there is the realization, the soul continues at an ordinary speed. The moment the power of realization brings an experience, the soul becomes a fast effort maker. In all the special aspects of transformation, whether it is regarding the creator or regarding the creation, until there is the realization in every aspect that it is the same period of time, the same yoga, that I am that same elevated soul, the activity will not be one full of zeal and enthusiasm. There may be transformation for a short time due to the influence of an atmosphere, but it will not be for all time.
Baba said this 2 days ago in the Morally, that he observes that when we visit Madhuban, we do have that focus. We do have that type of awareness And when we go on a retreat, we have that. And then we return back home. And Baba says, don't just become how you were before. So this is what Baba means, that we can have like an external stimulation, which gives us a realization. The Brahmin company, Baba's presence, the atmosphere. And that realization lasts for as long as we've got that external stimulus. But the real challenge of Brahmin life is, can I create that momentum internally for myself so that regardless of where I am, I can keep that momentum of yoga going?
Yeah, we saw Daddy Janki, and he told the whole world wherever she went, you know, who am I? Who do I belong to? And all the daddies. And this is why they had constant yoga, constant connection, and also, you know, empowering others that don't forget who is the one. Like Baba, I think that's what Baba meant here, up, you know, that I am the same, I have a period of time. So they just remembered Kalpa. Every Kalpa I was. And so, I mean, that's how the daddies never forgot Baba, or never allowed Maya or ego or anything to come and transform themselves. I think that's what Baba means, that keep this, you know, aspect, that it is the same period of time, the same yoga, that I am that same elevated soul. The activity will not be one full of zeal and enthusiasm. And we saw Dadi Janki's enthusiasm wherever she went. There may be transformation for a short time due to the influence of an atmosphere, but it will not be for all time. The power of realization brings about transformation for all time in an easy way. In this way, until there is the power of realization, there cannot be elevated transformation for all time in the self. For this, realization is needed in two aspects. One is the realization of one's own weakness. Secondly, realize the situations or an individual that may become a test paper, test paper, and also realize the desires and feelings of the mind of that individual, their weakness and their stage of being dependent.
So Baba's moving on to another aspect of the power of realization. So the first is regarding our own self-transformation. And for that, we need to observe the routine and the lifestyle that Baba has given us. And then we need to churn the ocean of knowledge. Because if we're just hearing the morally, it might not create the realization that we need. But when we go into the depth of these points, then we realize, oh, that's so. The real beauty and power of the knowledge is when we go into the depth. And then we need to develop our practice of yoga. The more that we commit to that practice, we begin to experience those points of knowledge. And then we develop a deeper realization of the soul, of Shiv Baba, of the three worlds. And now Baba's moving on to realization being connected with the power of discernment. This week we've had a couple of moralies. Today's morally was also linked with that, which is about the development of the intellect. Do you remember on Wednesday or Thursday, Baba talked about the broad intellect and the far-sighted intellect. And Baba was saying knowledge makes your intellect broad and yoga makes your intellect far-sighted. So part of this development to becoming farsighted, to becoming broad, is developing this power of realization. All of us have a third eye. So like before Baba's knowledge, of course, we have our own conscience. And it's not that we don't realize things. We do realize things, and we do even realize weaknesses in ourselves. We do discern things. But once Baba adds knowledge into that, then suddenly everything becomes much more clear. So it's this combination of knowledge, our own concentration of our intellect, and being very still that develops this discernment. So as the intellect gets absorbed with knowledge, gets absorbed in Baba's company, then your conscience within also is continuing to become awakened. We've suppressed our conscience, our own truth, and we've been following all sorts of mixture. And what Baba is sharing with us are points which are true to our own self. So your inner self agrees with Baba. And what happens is the more that we begin to align our thinking with Baba, the more our own inner realization continues to grow. It's like our conscience is becoming more and more powerful. So you have this combination of the intellect connected in yoga, the intellect that's full of Baba's morally points, and like a stillness, because your conscience has to access experiences that are relevant. So if you're in a particular situation, just like how Manoj Bhai was asking the question just now, it's linked with this point that Baba's raising, and you got to assess the situation. You got to assess the soul. You got to assess the time. And you'll be relying on some past experiences, but they've got to be the right ones. If we're just driven by old sanskars and past experiences, then that's where we create karmic account. So on a very subtle level, karmic accounts are where our old sanskars drive the mind and intellect. And sometimes then afterwards you say, oh, I don't know what came over me. Oh, it's not really me. It's just this situation. I just reacted and I behaved. And those are old karmic accounts. Now what Baba wants us to do is develop self-mastery. So what will occur is that within that particular situation, with that particular soul, there'll be these pools of old sanskars towards old behaviors. And it's at that point that we need to utilize knowledge, yoga, and stillness, so that the intellect doesn't just get swept, because the old sanskars can be like a forceful river, and the intellect just gets swept along in this river. And we're not really acting out of discernment and good judgment. We're acting out of old sanskars. So Baba's saying you're going to need your power to realize yourself first, and then you're going to be able to realize others.
Yeah, it's good. You know, now I don't know, I felt that now Baba is teaching us how to keep our exactly same. So listen carefully. I think it will be useful and practice, because like self-mastery, Baba has given us sort of commentary. So actually Baba is working everything for us. See, I thought, well, when I read this, you know, So see what you think, and if you listen carefully and see, you can practice this with what Baba is teaching us, a drill, I think. So that was being dependent, the individual who came in front of you with the situation and taking your test paper. Now Baba says also realization of the weakness of an individual or your stage when there is dependency on others. Understand the reason for the paper of the situation, and let there be the elevated form of realization to make yourself pass the test paper. Let there be the consciousness. So Baba is teaching us the drill, the consciousness. I am elevated. So do the yoga, let's practice. I am elevated. My original stage is elevated. And this situation is only a paper, test paper. This realization will bring about easy transformation and will make you pass. The realization of the desires of others and their stage of self-progress is also a basis for your self-transformation. So there cannot be self-transformation without the power of realization. Within realization, there is one sort of realization which comes with an honest and a true heart. Secondly, there is also realization that is clever because you have become knowledgeful. The soul will see the appropriate time to accomplish a task and to glorify their name. And although the soul has had a realization, there is no power in that realization which would bring about transformation. The realization in the heart enables you to claim blessings from the comforter of hearts. The clever realization pleases others for a short time and will also please the self. The third variety of realization is when the mind accepts that something is not accurate and the conscience speaks out that this is not accurate. But in order to prove the self, Maharati, externally, or in order that the name is not weakened or reduced within the family, they kill their conscience.
Baba's being very clear, and ultimately it's all about authenticity, sincerity. We heard today we're going to be facing Shiv Baba at the end. So, I mean, who are we kidding? And I mentioned earlier that I feel the foundation sanskar of body consciousness is seeing ourselves in other people's eyes. And you can see that how it destroys our own truth, because we're so afraid of what others will think of us. We actually suppress our own conscience. We don't want to change. And this, I think this is what Baba means by this clever form of realization. Baba was saying on Thursday in the board message that you just talk about yourselves all the time. So it's almost like a part of a culture where we feel we've got to just share. But I think a lot of our genuine work should be unspoken. You know, let's just show the Brahmin family we've changed, not tell them. We don't need to tell Brahmins we've changed. We don't need to tell the world we've changed. Let's show them. So I think this is what Baba might be meaning, and we sound like we're very knowledgeable because we've got great realization about ourselves. But Baba's really wanting to see us do it.
Yeah. And Baba is also pointing out the karma philosophy, that be aware that if you know what happens now. I read Baba is saying further. So I thought this word was very good to very, I mean, like can jerk you, like they kill their conscience. To kill the conscience in this way is also a great sin of suicide. This is also accumulated in the account of sin. So it is today's Murli also. This is why Bap Dada continues to smile and also listens to the dialogue of the minds. It is a very beautiful dialogue.
He means that in a joking way.
Call it conversation, call it dialogue. Should Baba tell you what it is? Baba's question. The main thing is that those with this sort of realization think that no one knows about it. This Murli is accurate to today's Sakar Murli, isn't it? Because Baba said, Baba knows everything. They realize that no one knows about it. Everyone is the same, but Baba knows about every leaf. So every leaf of Kalpatri, Baba knows. He doesn't only know when he is told in words. Even though Baba knows.
He's a marvelous intellect, isn't he? He knows every soul, every leaf of this tree, the seed. He's got this intellect. He can see everything going on inside of everyone all at the same time. Amazing.
Even though Baba knows, he plays at being ignorant. Being the innocent Lord, he makes the children progress through his innocence. Why does he become so innocent? Since he knows, why does he still become so innocent? Because he is the merciful Father. Baba has the mercy of not allowing you to increase your sin. Do you understand? Some children become very clever with Baba, who is the cleverest of all. And they also become clever in front of the instrument souls. This is why Baba becomes the innocent Lord, the one with a merciful heart. However, Bap Dada at all times has a clear account of each child's actions and the thoughts of the mind. It is not necessary to know the secrets of each one's heart, but there is a clear picture of each heartbeat of every child. So Baba is not a mind reader. He doesn't sit and read everybody's mind, but he says, it is not necessary to know the secrets of each one's heart, but there is a clear picture of each heartbeat of every child. You know, the pulse rate. Therefore, although Baba says that he does not know the secrets of each one's heart, because it is not necessary to know them, they are clear. The chart of the heartbeat of every moment and the thoughts of the mind are in front of Bapdada. Baba can even tell you about it. It isn't that he can't. Baba can tell you the date, the place, and the time, and all the things you have done. But even though Baba knows, he plays at being ignorant. You heard the reason for that.
So Shiv Baba is Dharamraj, the supreme accountant, And he is also Bholana, the innocent Lord. And if you just put up a mirror in front of someone all the time, they're not going to change like that, because you lose hope in yourself. So what Baba does is he just tells us generally in the morning. He doesn't specifically sit down and tell each of us our mistakes, our weaknesses. And he expects us to understand what he's saying through the general world and change ourselves, rather than him having to do
it. So this Muli, I think we all would just keep so much attention on ourselves, isn't it? It's very eye. So Baba says, so what is the essence? Because today Bap Dada is showing the whole chart. So the reason that self-transformation is not taking place so speedily is that there is lack of realization with an honest and a true heart. The power of realization brings very sweet experiences. You understand this, don't you? Sometimes experience yourself as a soul, which is a jewel of Baba's eyes. That is, realize yourself as an elevated dot merged in Baba's eyes. So, Noor-e Ratan is a very nice, I think it's Urdu, isn't it? Noor-e Ratan. Noor can, Neno can Noor. You know, because without the lights, without our, we can't see. So, Baba says, you are my lights of my eyes. So, jewel, you understand this, don't you? Sometimes experience, Baba says, to experience yourself as a soul, which is a jewel of Baba's eyes. That is, realize yourself as an elevated dot merged in Baba's eyes. You can only be merged as a dot in the eyes. You cannot merge with the body. Sometimes realize yourself as a sparkling jewel of the forehead, a sparkling star. Sometimes experience yourself as a cooperative right hand of Brahma Baba. In the corporeal Brahmin form, be the arms of Brahma. And sometimes experience your avyak angelic form with such power of realization, have unique spiritual experiences. Don't just speak about these things as knowledge, but realize and experience them. Increase the power of these experiences. And then when an experience of weakness shows, even a small clear mark on such a powerful mirror, you will be able to transform it automatically. So do you understand that the basis of self-transformation is the power of realization?
We'll stop there. Good point.
So now just a little bit, we finished.
Okay.
And then we won't read the message that is there. We finished this because it's so beautiful, and it's just a little small paragraph left now, few lines. So do you, is that okay with you? I hope you
It's
read.
fine. Yeah.
So do you understand that the basis of self-transformation is the power of realization? Make use of this power. Don't just be pleased by counting these powers. Yes, I have this power and this one, but constantly make use of them in every task for the self for others and for service. The self, others, and service. Do you understand? So you heard today's activities. Some children ask if this is what Baba does all the time. But what can Baba do? Baba is also helpless. What can he do? Everyone has to be taken home with Baba. Since you are to return with Baba as companions, you should also become worthy of that. Baba observes and continues to give you the news so that his companions can become equal. This is beautiful, isn't it? There is no question about those who are going to follow behind. There will be many of those, but the companions must be equal. So it's like a bride and groom and the closest family. They are in front and the rest of the guests are at the behind. So Baba doesn't want to see us behind, left behind. Baba wants us equal with him. That's why. So there is no question about those who are going to follow behind. There will be many of those, but the companions must be equal. Are you the companions or are you part of the procession? The procession will be a very huge one. This is why the wedding procession of Shiva is famous. There will be a variety in the procession, but the companions should be equal. So Baba wants us, all of us, to make such efforts that we claim a higher status. Acha, Baba says, and now Baba is giving us yad pyar and blessing. To the elevated, powerful souls, to those who make use of all powers at the time of need, to all the children who are fast effort makers, to those who constantly bring about the success in service desired by the heart through self-transformation, to the children with a happy heart, to those who remain clear in front of Baba, the comforter of hearts, to the elevated souls who are the embodiment of success, love, remembrance, and namaste from the heart of Bap Dada, the comforter of hearts. Cha Om Shanti. So,
Want to share something?
no, just ask Malaben now if she can reply why she chose this. It was beautiful, accurate, Murli, you know. Are you there, Malaben?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. And I think this Murli needs a lot of churning,
Yeah.
particularly on this power of realization. So thank you.
Yeah, once you realize, then check and change straight. There's, you know, one Murli like, yeah, but this was a very eye-opener. And there was one word that shocked me was suicide, you know, killing the conscience. That somebody wants to come.
Well then, Malaben,
Please,
you've got Ranjan Ben's certificate of contentment for choosing a good one. That's a good start.
That's Lynette wanting to come, I think.
Shanti, Lynette Ben, did you want to come in? I think Lynette Ben's shifted to the veranda. She's giving us the glimpse.
No,
Making me jealous because it's cold here.
it was a beautiful Murli. It was really, really informative. Very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come in and make any final comments, any reflections on the morally?
I just think it is really worth going over a
Yeah.
couple times. It
Yeah.
really is beautiful, Marie. So thank you, Malaben, for suggesting it.
Thank you. And just to reiterate that if anyone wishes to suggest any morally, so that we got some deeper exploration during these sessions, you can just WhatsApp me the morally. date, and if you have a link to the Morley, that's even easier, then send me that link. But otherwise the date, and I'm sure I can locate the Morley. Hello, Barbara Ben, you've come on the screen. Would you like to say something?
Shanti, yes, that Murley is accurate. What came up for me is being honest. And Baba, sometimes he said he's pleased with an honest heart, and for be able to be transformed, to be able to transform the self. Honesty came up, and it's
Yeah.
so perfect because when you are honest and your Baba's pleased, then you become his real companion. Not just those in the possession. So honesty with Baba brings about
Eh,
transformation. Thank you.
And also, I thought, well, you're cheating yourself if by not being honest. That's why Baba said, what can Baba say? Baba gives blessing, but you are not transforming yourself and you're cheating yourself. And that would cause a loss, in achieving a higher status or going with Baba hand to hand rather than in a procession. So that's
Yeah,
what I thought Baba was pointing out.
yeah, definitely.
Om Shanti, I am so glad too that I was able to listen to this Murli, because Maya is always trying to grab us by the throat. And
Yes.
it's so easy for us to fall to her. So I'm so glad that Baba says, once you are honest and truthful with him and you declare your sins to him, that half of your sins can be forgiven. And you know what? That gives us a lot of courage to know that our sins can be forgiven. It helps us to want to change, to want to know that we should change because he can forgive us. And that was very meaningful for me and encouraging for me as well. Om Shanti.
Yes, I think so too. And I think we've got two dynamics here. So Baba says, first of all, when you come to Baba, you can share with him the sins of your past life before becoming a Brahmin. And then half of those sins can be forgiven. All the daddies did that. So once Baba had said that, Daddy Gulzar used to share that she was only about 15 years old or something when Baba suggested this. And so they were all writing their diaries, and she remembers giving it. She was in the children's class, and she remembers giving it to her daddy to give to Baba, and she was like crying after having done all this. And the daddy said, "You've been with Baba since you were so young. What sins would you have performed? I don't even know what you would have written." And she said, "Yeah, but when I was 6 years old, I took that extra cake from my mummy's kitchen," and it was, I think I used to just chuckle away that this is what they did. And we got Brahmins coming at different points in their life. So one of the big burdens for Brahmins who are coming later in life is the memories of this birth. And on one side, your past experiences can be a bonus, they can help. But on the other side, it can be a burden. So that's the first thing to do. And then Baba was saying this morning that after becoming a Brahmin, the thing about anytime we use the vices is it's 100-fold accumulation at that point. And so Baba is saying you're going to have to, so in the Morally we heard in the morning, Brahma Baba was actually there in Mother Baba. So he would be meaning that very literally, that you should be writing to Baba. Or you should say, for example, there would have been Brahmins who were struggling with their purity, maybe they're in a couple, so they've gone and met Baba, they said they will remain pure, and then they've struggled with something. So Baba would have expected them to come back to Mother Baba, to write to Baba and then come back to Mother Baba and actually face him and say it and share. And as we just heard in the Morally that we've just read, there's a process of becoming egoless that we have to go through. So it's not that Baba didn't know anyway. But what Baba is saying is your process of sharing, because you're so frightened about someone finding out, it's that which has to go. But if you just share and then you just carry on doing it, that's not a realization. That's just sharing. A realization is where you're sharing with the regret and with the determination for it not to reoccur. And for that situation, Baba will forgive then half of that. And then the third way we gain Baba's forgiveness is through the pilgrimage of remembrance. So Baba sometimes calls remembering Baba the most elevated repentance. The Baba's used this phrase in the Murali before as well. He says, don't sit around regretting and repenting. Remember the Father. That's the most elevated form of repentance. You got an opportunity to do something about it. That's the sign that you really regret your past sins. It's not that you're sitting around just regretting. No, clear the vibration. So when I look in my third eye, I can see this very dark tail. You know, in Christianity, they talk of the devil being the beast, and they show him, they connect all of these animals that have tails, like lizard and snake, with the devil. And they show the devil with a tail. And when I look in my third eye, this is what I see. I see this tail starting at the beginning of the Copper Age. And it's like I've got a tail of dark energy that I have released through multiple bodies, with multiple souls, in multiple circumstances, at multiple times. And that dark energy is holding me down in this way. And it's holding others down. So my job now through yoga, it's my greatest privilege to have an opportunity to do something about it. So I can't go back and change the drama. But the energy that I have released, I can cancel it all. And so maybe I left imprints of sorrow in souls in past lives, and that might still be in their subconsciously. So by having yoga with Shri Baba will clear all that energy inside of them. And he will clear all the energy, like with the environment, with different kind of areas that we've left this negative energy. And that's what yoga can achieve. So Baba will say, these are your 3 methods of repentance. And then all of your sins can ultimately be forgiven.
Brother Shailan, you know, I understand now that reading the Murli is my answer to all my questions. And I think people who read the Murlis will never suffer from depression because Baba gives you the answer. I was getting into a stage of crying, and the next day yesterday when I read the Murli, and Baba said, "Why are you crying? Why are you crying? This is that your stage?" And right away I got comfort. You know, I told myself, wow, look at this. Baba's Murlis give us so much courage. And that's where my focus is. That's where my answer is to all of my questions. Om Shanti.
We have to keep in mind that Baba knows the 3 aspects of time. So we might hear a Murali spoken in the 1960s, or we've just read a Murali from 1987. But like Baba was saying, he knows everything all at once. And he knew that on the 8th of October, we would be reading this Murali when he spoke it in 1987. He knows the 3 aspects of time. So he kept us in mind while he was speaking that Murali then. So when you pick up a Murali, he knew you'd be picking up that Murali at that moment. So when he was speaking it, he was already keeping you in mind. he knew that you would need it on this day at this time. So he spoke it then. And so when you're stable in eternity, there is no time really. Like everything is just one sort of a continuum. So Shiv Baba is not from our world. He's not operating on our calendar. He spoke something that we say is in the past, but for him it's in the present. There's no such thing as the past in eternity. It just is. And so Shiv Baba said to us in one of the Murlis we revised on a Sunday, we repeated it on a Sunday in January. And he said that you should treat every day's Murli as a letter, a love letter to you. Because he was explaining that, well, it was a question, I think, from Brahmins, that when Brahma Baba was around, they could actually write to Baba and they would get a response back by letter. And Baba said, well, the question for Brahmins is, well, how do we do this now? Baba says in the Murli, write to Baba, let Baba know, how do we? So Baba said in that Murli that the evening before, you have to sit with Baba, and you can write physically, or you can talk to Baba in Baba's room or next to your Baba's picture, and you talk to Baba, you share with Baba. Then the next morning, treat that Murli as the response to what you said to Baba. So you've just illustrated that perfectly, Sister Judy, that you were feeling something, you no doubt you would have said something to Baba in your mind, and the next morning, in the Murli, Baba said, treat it as your letter, because Baba knew that you would be picking up that Murli, you would be hearing that Murli on that day when he spoke it. So a great example of that. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Brother Shalan. You all are so knowledgeable. You are great teachers.
Well, who made us that? You know, Benjamin and I, it never occurs to us that we'd be teachers. We are just students. We're students like you. However, think what a teacher we've got. You know, like if you think I'm good, you're being actually taught by the ocean of knowledge. I mean, we just heard what his intellect is like. So I think that we are very, very privileged. We got a great, great, great teacher.
And also, Baba just now said self-realization. We all should be, first of all, become our own teachers. Baba just calls us teachers because he had so much respect, you know. But otherwise, we all are our own teachers first to teach ourselves and become. And so we all, this is why I enjoy this, because we all are students. Baba comes and slowly, because we make the most of this time. Because who knows, things are happening so suddenly. We know all about electricity, everything. So even thanks to this technology and whoever invented, they all are getting blessings. You know, that these facilities are here for us, even though we are far apart, so many far, far away, thousands of miles away. We still feel as if we are here right now. We all are together in a room. And so let's make the most of it. But we all are students. Baba is our teacher and he is enjoying it, and he comes and teaches us and guides us, getting us ready, Bab Saman, so that, you know, because Baba knows the what times are going to come, even more than we realize. We just watch a little bit, but Baba has the full picture. So Baba wants us to be ready, really ready. And like he says, become Brahma Baba's right hands, helpers.
So this week, let's work on our power of realization. Baba ran through different titles, different consciousnesses that we can practice. And he's saying to us, realize how elevated you are. As you develop a new concept of yourself and you experience your elevated self, then your weaknesses will appear like a dark mark on a white sheet. So your power of realization will increase the more that you experience your own elevation. So let's work on that this week. And we were revising a morally on Thursday where Baba said, pick a speciality and work on it for 5 days and see that change. So let's do this. Pick a few titles, work on it for a few days, pick those consciousnesses, and then see how your power of realization and experience grow.
And also Baba says, become Baba's hope and wish for us is to become a flawless diamond. So this is good to check that there's no flaw in the diamond. Baba gave us a jewel of Baba's eyes, and we can merge in Baba's eyes. We can only merge when we are very pure diamond, pure. So
yeah, thank you all. What a great session. Thanks to all of you for joining and staying and your contribution. And thanks to Baba. What a great morning. So have a great week, everyone.
Thank you.
Om Shanti.
Thank you.
Om Shanti. Om Shanti. And also greetings to those of you on YouTube later on. Om Shanti. Have a great week. Om Shanti.